Most high capacity, high functioning adults don't need more motivation. They need the ability to stay calm under pressure. Pennie Wilson is a mental fitness trainer and the creator of the Kokoro calm repattering method. She empowers parents, teachers, and leaders to train their minds to stay calm under pressure so they can respond with clarity instead of reactivity. Her work is rooted in lived experience. After years of functioning well on the outside while feeling overwhelmed on the inside, Pennie discovered that real change doesn't come from more tools. It comes from training the nervous system for calm. Today, she teaches simple, practical skills that build self-trust and align leadership in everyday life. So Pennie, welcome to the show. And let's just jump right into it, because you said in your intro, or the intro that I just read for you, that people don't need more motivation. And I hate the word motivation. I don't know if we talked about that in our pre-interview, but when did you first realize that they don't need more motivation? They need, more calmness,
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here. I think one of the seeds that gets planted, and then over time, it just continues to grow bigger and bigger. I've realized with working with leaders recently that when there's that break between knowledge and the knowledge of what they know they need to do versus being able to actually take action and do it. I see it in parents. I see it in, teachers and all the different people that we're working with. There is that gap. And what do you do with that gap to train that? And that's what mental fitness truly is. So when I first realized that for myself, it's like I said, 20 years ago, it started as a parent. I was a homeschool mom, not being able to stay calm as a parent, continually reacting to my emotions without having the tools to work through that. And now teaching people those tools. I was actually able to witness my 18-year-old daughter on Saturday have a moment with my 10-year-old daughter, and she was just helping her to breathe. So that's really the moment of being with someone when they're emotionally reactive and helping them to co-regulate. So it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I know in my past few years of getting better, being better, calmness is still something that I need more tips on. So I'm looking forward to us diving into it. But before we talk more about your methods, what is Kokoro? I mean, what's the genesis of that word?
Yeah, it's actually the one word in Japanese that means heart, body, mind, and soul. So when you think about the journey that we have and all of the quote unquote traumatic experiences, parts of us can break away. And Kokoro is coming back home, feeling aligned in your thoughts and in your feelings and in your body, which are all different centers of creation, right? So it's just that complete alignment and knowing who you are and what you're born to do and feeling that joy of moving toward what you desire and letting go of what you fear.
Yeah, so everything's connected, right?
Exactly,
it's like
right?
we like to think that we can be like, physically unfit but mentally well and all this stuff. But it sounds like this technique is like everything has to be in unison, which probably is why like the stress. I don't know. Do you use any like stress rings or watches or anything like that to monitor stress in your practice?
I don't. I just use my body. The body is the most amazing tool, and it's going to tell me what I need to know.
Wow. So, I mean, like when you say you use the body, I mean, you're probably so in tune with your body that like when you're like, do you feel stress coming on? Like, even if it's not like, I don't know, stress can manifest in so many different ways. I'm finding like it can be mental stress, or that's the one we all know, right? Where you're tightening the stomach or whatever. But sometimes you feel like I'm finding that I get stressed if I sit for too long, or if I don't move enough in the day, or don't get enough sunlight. Are you to the point where your body can actually experience that?
Well, that's the thing about high performance is you tend to push and ignore that the first noticing of, am I feeling stressed and what's going on? So there are times when I feel like I'm in that mode of pushing to my higher capacity, that 2% push. But when I recognize that I'm pushing too far, pulling back, I'm feeling that in my body and noticing. So it's a continual process of recognizing, and which takes us back to the 4 R's that I hope that we get to talk about today. But allowing yourself to have that practice and notice what's happening in your body gives you that awareness, and then it gives you that power to choose.
Yeah. Let's jump into the 4 R's right now, because I want to pick your brain about how I can become more calm, because I think most leaders want that calmness, right? Because I'd say now 80% of the time I've got it mastered. It's that 20%. And after we go through these, I'll even give you an example of where this 20% crept in my life at the very most inopportune time this weekend for me. And so I'm always looking to be better. And of course, with self-leadership, knowing your body, like you said, listening to your body is so important, because if you lose it at the wrong time, which I'm going to admit on this podcast to everyone that I did, it really sets yourself back quite a bit if you're not able to overcome it. But yeah, so I know you've got like 4 R's that you like to say to get this kind of calmness. So just walk us through each one of those. Introduce all 4, and then we can talk about them each individually.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to set the backstage for it comes from an image, and what I teach people in the self-leadership area is how to create their own patterns in their mind. So when you're recognizing there's this behavior, this thing that I'm not doing that I know better, it's not the kind of person I want to be. The 4 R's gives you that framework of how to move through that. So the background image is that of the sun. Imagine on your upper right side in your visual, you see the sun. It's bright, it's beautiful, it warms your skin, fills your soul with joy. And then over on the left side is this visual of this storm and the clouds and the heaviness and the fear that pulls you down. So the way the brain automatically works, it's naturally getting pulled down toward the clouds. When you recognize, I didn't act in the way that I wanted to, you can have compassion for yourself in that moment, because it's an automatic, natural thing that happens. And unless you choose intentionally to look toward the sun and move toward what you want, then that intended reaction is going toward the clouds. So with that in mind, first is to recognize, and if you've been in self-leadership for any amount of time, that's obviously the first thing that's going to happen in any kind of framework. And that's what I love about this framework is, if you look at the 12-step program, that's trauma and addiction recovery, it encapsulates the first 3 R's. And then there's another form of mental fitness that's more prevalent in the UK, but it encapsulates the 4th R, which is visualization. So our method encapsulates all of them. So you go from that full dark place into that what I really want to create place. So that first R is recognizing what's happening in that experience where you got triggered, what happened in your thoughts, your emotions, and in your body, your subconscious mind. And I'm a non-traditional certified hypnotherapist, so that's why I'm teaching people how to do this for themselves. I'm not, controlling or creating that program for them. And I really want to empower people to recognize that they have that power to choose. So as you recognize what you don't want, you're really looking into your thoughts and going into that cave, so to speak, of self-leadership, doing your own inner work and facing that, okay, what did I do? And having compassion for yourself in that moment is really huge, because it's going to be the shame that's going to keep you in the past patterns, right? So really just, okay, I didn't mean to do it, and I'm going to do better. And what can I do better? Recognizing what happened in that moment, the emotions. It's likely triggered to something in the past, and it's in your body and you're not aware of it. So just looking at what happened, and there's questions that you can ask, but then going on to the second one, remove. What do I want to let go about the identity of who I see I am in that moment? Or maybe I'm trying to overstep my boundaries and look at controlling someone else. So there's all the sorts of awareness questions. And I love that you're on this stoicism kick, right? Asking and question everything. So that's helping you to go into all of those things. It's helping you to recognize what's going on in that inner experience. The third R begins to shift from the clouds to the sun, where you're asking yourself, what do I want to experience instead? And this is where a lot of people in traditional types of therapy, they only look at the clouds. They get stuck in ruminating in the past and asking over and over again, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? What happened in that past? But this third R shifts it to, what do I want to experience? And that's shifting the brain literally from the clouds to the sun. And when you first begin to ask yourself those questions, it's hard because you haven't even looked there before. But that begins the cycle of letting go of burnout, like you talk about in your book, and moving toward what you desire, right? So that fourth R really is the creating in your mind what you want to live in your life. That's the power of visualization. That's the power of neuroplasticity, and you're really moving toward focusing on your desired outcome so that it becomes an embodied experience. You're feeling the emotions in your body. You're seeing the images in your mind. And those are the three key things that program the mind is images, words, and emotions.
Yeah, that's a really powerful breakout. And like, I realized I told you I was going to give you an example, and I went through all of those without kind of knowing it. So
Awesome.
the first one is recognize, so just so you know, for the conversation, as I was going to give a speech, or gave a speech on Saturday, and it's the first time I publicly spoke in a long time, and I was prepared, and we've done this podcast for a while, so I wasn't scared of speaking. But yet that little self-doubt is still there. Am I going to make sense? Am I going to synthesize everything? What's going to happen when I get on stage? Well, the night before, things kind of got out of my control, which they often do, going back to the Stoicism, very little we can control. And I snapped, and I saw the old Bobby come in, and it wasn't the way I wanted to react. It obviously set my mood completely the opposite way when you're trying to go to sleep before you speak. But the thing is I think I have your R's down as recognize, rename, replace, and re-image or reimagine.
Remove,
Remove.
recognize, remove, replace, reimagine.
Okay, remove.
Yes.
I had that one wrong. Okay, so like the very next day, I when I looked at it, I was able to just like remove it, right?
Yeah.
And that was like, hey, this was the old me, as you talked about, and when you were explaining these. Whereas in the past, I would have let that event maybe set the stage for the next week, next month. I don't know how it would put me back into a depression because, as I'm going through this journey, I realized this isn't where I want to be. The old depressed Bobby is not what I want to be. But yet at the same time, I still see those little instances, and I'm sure we'll talk about how long the timing and all this is. But then, what can I replace that with going forward is everything we're talking about today, everything I've learned over the past 6 years, because one mistake think of all the days that I didn't make a mistake, right? But I for the first time in my life, I was able to see it, and then reimagine. I think that's the right word. Forgive me if I wrote it down right. But now I have a pattern that I can now visualize myself later on. Like next time this happens, and the Stoics think about like the worst thing that can happen, and like what can be taken away from you. Well, what was taken away from me at that moment was my self-control, my calmness, my sense of mind, and all that. So I gave you all that. So diagnose me. Tell me how you would coach me through that, so I can learn from you, who's been working in this space for a while.
Well, first of all, recognize what you're doing right. All the progress that you've made. Progress. I love. Coach. There's a coach that's been around for 40 years. He's not coming to mind, but looking back at the progress to see where you've come from, you're seeing all the good that you've done, right? And having compassion for that's who I was a long time ago, and drawing that line in the sand. That's not who I am now. So taking it from what you did, you can literally imagine and set yourself in your safe place, we call it. We help you to create that safe place, but I'm sure you have a place where you like to go when you meditate and find that calmness for yourself, imagining what you did wrong and what you felt wrong, what felt out of alignment. I look at it as if there's mud. My identity of who I truly am is the gem on the inside. But if there's a bubble outside of me, there's like mud or stickers or something that gets plastered on the outside. That's not who I really am, but it's how I showed up in the moment. So what is that I want to remove about my identity, and what caused me to move to that place? It was an emotional belief, or, I couldn't control it. I felt frustrated. I was out of my element. And then taking yourself back to that reset moment, right? And then how do I want to feel? Who am I choosing to be? And then taking yourself to your future experience of this is me. This is my new self. This is my best self. I'm showing up as on stage, right? And feeling those emotions and visualizing yourself walking out on stage. I use an I am statement and just choose 3 adjectives and then 1 noun. And I use I am a powerful, meek, and victorious weapon of light. And there's more that goes on with that. But I put those words into my body over and over again as I pause. I visualize who I want to become. So that I am statement is going to give you power to hold on to that future identity.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I think the coach you were talking about, Dan Sullivan, is that
Yes,
the
thank you.
gap in the gain? Yeah, which
Yes,
which I'm a huge fan of, and I've promoted that
right.
on this show many times
Love
because
it.
I think that's one of the best books for mental healing that I've ever
Yes.
read because
Mm,
it does like you said take stock in where how far you've come, not how you've just stumbled at the moment, right?
yes.
Because life isn't like you don't snap your fingers and go from one to another.
Yeah.
I also like that what you talked about the mud on the window or whatever you've
Mhm.
got, because sometimes, a guy I had on the podcast earlier, I was drawn to him because he was describing a situation. He said, sometimes it's okay that the windshield's dirty,
Mm,
but it's like, how long do you want it to be dirty? Sometimes you need it to be dirty, right? Because it allows you to, reflect and to observe and, assess,
mm,
recognize, to use your word. The But you don't have to keep the window dirty. And I think that's the biggest deterrent to calm that I find in my life is that I always think that once the window's dirty, it's always going to be dirty. So give us some tips that you tell people to like how they clean it, or I mean, I know you
mhm,
said it's temporary, but for
mhm,
people who are kind of stuck in that dirty window mindset, let's call it,
mhm.
what would you recommend to them?
Well, I love that analogy because if you literally imagine sitting in your driver's seat, you're looking out at the window, you're seeing this bug splattered on the windshield. You have a choice that you can focus on the bug, you can see what's wrong, you can let it obscure your vision, or you can look past it and see the road. And this is where I want to go. This is who I want to become. So, this is the metaphor for that sun and the clouds picture. Where are you going to point your mind? What are you going to focus on? So, there's that heavy part, whatever it is that was frustrating for you. So, asking yourself questions helps you to find that identity inside that you want to let go of. I love the analogy, I call it the Kokoro tree, and just imagine finding that awareness through asking yourself the questions as you're sitting by the tree. And sometimes the brain gets so confusing, you're like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm focused on. I asked my 10-year-old the other day, like, what were you thinking in that moment? She's like, I have no idea. so so that's what the tree does, is breaks down the different areas of branches that are the thoughts. They come and go and change with the seasons, and they're going to be different all the time. And then the emotions are the trunk of the tree. What are you feeling? And then the roots are the beliefs. They're buried underneath the ground where you can't see them. So this is where it becomes a somatic experience, an embodied emotional, what am I feeling? And just really allowing yourself to slow down. I love to pause, and the power of the pause is your breath, right? Something that you can choose no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. If you have that moment where you've decided, when I hit that moment of I'm not emotionally regulated, I am not calm, I'm going to pause. I'm going to give myself that permission. And just close your eyes if you can close your eyes, but if you're driving, then focus on one fixed point, right? And then just breathe 3 deep breaths intentionally. Your breath is automatic, but you can also choose it voluntarily. So choosing to breathe is going to slow down your body, slow down all your thoughts. And then I love to imagine, adding the visualizations, that there's a waterfall of light flowing in through the top of my head, seeing it in a color that I love, going to the places in my mind, in my heart, wherever I need it to go to support me, to bring awareness, to hold me in that compassionate space so that I don't have to focus on the problem, the bug on the windshield, whatever I'm annoyed about that's happening in my life right now. This is frustrating. Okay, let's just push pause on that for a second and feel your body, what's going on. And then I love somatic imagery. I love being able to feel through. Sometimes we don't have words to explain how we're feeling in the moment, especially if we're in that unregulated place, right? Our brains, the front of our brain has shut down. The back of our brain, I call it the monkey brain, that becomes the sergeant of just taking command and keeping everyone safe. So just getting to that place of feeling what's going on in your body and adding that imagery. So you can imagine emotions in shapes and colors, and you can see it in your imagination. And for anyone that doesn't naturally imagine shapes and colors, it is a learned skill. Being able to see an apple and taste the apple and smell the apple, you can practice that as a skill. So imagine your emotions as a thing, an object. What shape is it? What color is it? And what does it touch, like use all your senses. How does it feel? What's the tactile sense of it? And whatever your subconscious mind is bringing up to you, it has a message, and you can look at what that message is. What does that mean to me? Is this something that's huge and heavy, or is it something sticky and slimy pulling me down? Like, there's so much the brain does to bring these visualizations, and it's so fun. And I love to work with people that are looking at that experience. And then when you recognize it, you can literally change it. If you see a big spiky, ball, let's say, that has big spikes on it and it's hurting you, okay, let's change the shape of the ball. Let's make it melt down and become a different color, become a different texture, become something else that you want it to be. So the subconscious mind is so incredible because it doesn't understand the difference, like a child doesn't understand the difference between what you visualize and what is real. So when you imagine that in your subconscious mind, it's actually shifting those emotions. So somatic visualization, seeing colors and shapes, what you recognize, what you saw that you don't like, and changing it into something. So that's one way that you can find the place to recognize, remove, replace, and reimagine what you want it to feel. And then if you go deeper, you'll look at what thoughts did I have in that moment? What emotions did I have in that moment? Again, looking at the clouds. What beliefs did I have about myself in that moment? And then shift it to the sun. What thoughts do I want to have? What emotions do I want to have? And what beliefs do I want to have about myself?
I've never heard of that somatic imagery before. That's very interesting. And like, do you get to the point where you can do that in the moment, or is it kind of a post, like a after action review, if you will?
Yeah, I feel it's a pause moment where if I'm getting triggered, I need to say, you know what? I need to back up and I'm going to go to the bathroom, or I'll be back in 5 minutes and then we can talk about this if it's with my kids or whatever's going on. But that it definitely for me is a pause, because you need to be in that calm, relaxed state. And that's where the brain is most susceptible to having those shifts.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that next time. I've never thought of it that. And you said it takes some work, and I mean, you seem to be really big on the visualizations in general. And do you think that's where a lot of us miss it? Like, because I'm not like a visualization guy in general. Like, I can think of like my dog's face or something that makes me happy, but generally I don't ever think in like shapes and scenery and stuff like that. Is that common, or is that just the way I'm wired?
It's an untrained mind. It's not your capacity. It's not what you have to do. But if you haven't trained your mind to see the images, to feel the emotions, then it won't be a learned skill yet. It's a learnable skill, and you can train your mind to see that. Are you missing it? I would say yes, because the power of the mind can be trained to imagine what you want. If you go back in history and you look at Thomas Edison, you look at, everyone that invented something, they imagined it in their mind. Athletes, Maya Ruchero, she trains the top 1% Olympic athletes. She's a mental fitness coach in the UK, and she trains the top 1%. And she's training them through visualization. Mental practice is what they call it in the athletic world. But you can do this with music. You can do this with whatever it is, especially with stage speaking. Visualizing how you want to show up and connect with your audience, that is powerful, because you see yourself, like you've mentioned before, the way that you relate to yourself and the way that you relate to others. That's what you want to see yourself, what you can control while you're on that stage versus letting go of what you can't control. I can't control their reactions and they might do X, Y, Z, but I can still choose this, right? And that's where the visualization comes in.
Yeah. No, I've always heard of visualization, or I always thought of it as like the end result, right? Like, how will you feel when you complete the race? How will you feel when you get off the stage or whatever? But I've never thought about it in the day-to-day emotions. That's very interesting, and something I'm gonna definitely try to incorporate, because so often when we get out of balance or we react kind of like I did this weekend, you feel, or I feel, physically sick. And I'm wondering, like, what would that image be, right? Who knows, right? But you don't want that again. And using that, like you said, training the brain, and that's That's the thing. I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about it. I mean, you went through a change and now you practice and coach others. I'm still in the process of a change, but much better than I was a few years ago. It does take time.
Yes.
So what do you tell people to do when that whole rewiring, the brain development doesn't happen? Like, well, what's the bridge to get them through that gap?
Yeah. I really believe it's a belief of what you're focusing on. There's a visualization that came to me early in my journey of a garden hose. And imagine the garden hose is 6 feet long, and every choice that you make, it's as if you put a black marble or a white marble in the front of the garden hose. And every choice you make, it's going to continually go through. So this just like shows the learning curve of the patience that you need to have in order to get the results to come out the other side. I call it the messy middle. There is the reality of you're focusing in your mind on that desired outcome. That's who I want to be. That's who I want to do, whatever it is that you're going forward toward. And there's the messy middle. And I'm not there yet. So focusing on, and that's where we talk about in our community every week, we talk about 3 key focuses. Number 1, looking toward the sun, what is going well? Focusing in your mind literally. So depression is looking at everything that's going wrong. Anxiety is looking at the future, what's going to go wrong or what has. So depression, I would say more is based upon the bad that has happened in the past versus anxiety looking for the future, the bad that is going to come or could come. And then being aware in that moment of just what is that messy middle? So focusing on the sun, what is going well, trains your brain to become wired to see what is good, the gap and the gain. That trains your brain toward the gain. That's what I want. That's what I'm moving toward. And then looking for progress and tracking. This is why it's working. Proving to your brain the results I'm having right now. I have the wins at the end of the day, right? The celebrating moments. I made progress because of these 3 things. And then looking at the clouds is the second key focus of validating and acknowledging what is real. Because we don't want to sweep all the elephants in the room under the rug and ignore them because obviously that's not going to help. But we acknowledge them and we recognize them. And when we're ready, we choose to ask questions to learn from them. Okay, what happened? And how can I do better? Recognizing whatever's going on there. And then the third key focus is the one next step. What am I going to do tonight or tomorrow or the next goal that I can focus on, that I have 100% control over? Not that I'm waiting for someone else to do something, but what I can choose with my time and my choice. So that puts you in the position of being a creator. There's a framework we use called the TED, the Empowerment Dynamic, from a book called The Power of TED, and where you really can focus on where you can be that creator, what you get to choose and how you're moving forward and focusing your brain on what you want to create your desired outcome.
So let's dig into that analogy a little bit. I probably should have asked you this earlier when you first introduced it, but the clouds in this case, are those the bad things that to keep you from seeing the sun, or is it just the way my kind of mind's working in this instance?
I like to separate the light and the darkness to recognize the opposition of life. So the sun for me represents all the desired outcomes, all the things that bring me joy. You mentioned something that it gives you energy when you're talking about easy, hard, hard, easy. And what you want to focus on, I call it the heliotropic effect. When you focus on what you desire, just like a plant is leading toward the light, it's growing in that direction because it feels good. When you focus on what you desire, you lean toward the sun, that energy is going to pull you upward and forward, right? And then the brain, becoming so confused sometimes, can get messy. And so I like to separate the clouds as in what's uncomfortable. We can frame whatever perspective we want. We can call it bad. We can call it pain. We can call it trauma. Or we can say something I haven't learned from yet, something that feels uncomfortable. So looking at the clouds is those emotional triggers that come up in the moment. All of a sudden you're on fire, your hair's on fire. You're like, what is going on right now? And just recognizing that storms are going to come and go, and it's a part of life. We don't have to try and eliminate the storms from our life, but that's truly what mental fitness is about, is becoming calm in the middle of the storm, because you can control your thoughts, your emotions, and what you believe about yourself.
I kind of like, I'm taking all this visualization, but probably because it's new to me. And like, I'm aware, in work, a lot of times, you work for somebody who wants to like, I do some consulting is my real job. It's shocking. This isn't my real job being a podcaster, but and they want visualizations and they want graphics, they want charts, they want all these kind of things. And that's very difficult for me because I don't really see the world like that. But what you're telling me is it's not that I don't see the world. I just haven't gotten to that place yet. And maybe like even incorporating these mental kind of things in my well-being and my stress reduction can maybe then help me start putting pictures into words and or to images or words into images. I got that mixed up there. But it's very cool because and what I like the most about it for me is that it's different. It's not the way I act today. So it causes that pause. It's a forced pause in the way I act and behave because it's a little bit outside of what I normally do. And I think a lot of times that's where like the stress, anxiety, and losing your kind of self-control happens is because, Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing, expect different results, it's insanity or whatever. Well, I think that's what most of us do. Yeah. It's like I got mad at this instance, or I lost my temper here, and they just chalk it up. Well, that's what I always do. Well, like you said, the stoicism now that I'm studying. Well, why do I always do it that way? And I'm not one to. I mean, I know you said a lot of it. Depression is the past, and anxiety is the future, and I agree with that analogy. But I'm not one of those people that really wants to sit around and dwell on the past as bad because it's behind me. There's nothing I can do, but I want to reborn myself or rebirth myself today to get over it. What are some techniques that you have so people don't, like when they do start visualization, they don't like kind of shift the focus to the negative, side of the house? If that makes sense, my question.
Yeah. So I think that there are times when the soul needs to look at what hurts, because someone that's grieving lost 3 family members in the last year, they got some heavy emotions going on, right? And to slap positive thinking on them, just feel better. Just look toward the sun. Just make it all better. It's not going to work. So that's why the emotional waves of the 4 R's really comes into place, because that emotional healing comes from validation, being heard, being understood. So going into that recognizing place. And what would I do to help someone in that place? There's a type of traditional therapy, I believe it's called IFS, Internal Family Systems, and we use it in hypnotherapy as a parts discussion. And you can do this with yourself, is to visualize. We can't change the past circumstances, but the trauma comes because we're still in the present moment holding on to that past emotion. So as the experience happened, and then our emotions are still wrapped around it, tied around it, we're focusing on it, we're talking about it, all of the clouds are swirling when it comes to that experience. So a conversation around, what do I need to do to learn from that experience? Okay, what happened? Go and visualize that past experience. Put yourself in your imagination. See the people, what happened in the circumstance. And if there's something you need support with, that's definitely where I can come in to support that conversation. But you can do it yourself to have that conversation, what happened. And there's probably part of you that had an unmet need, something they needed to say, something they wanted to experience, but they didn't get to. And there's a way to reframe that, going into the darkness, into the pain, and helping them to see, okay, what didn't you get and what did you need in that situation? Many people have a problem using their voice to set boundaries or to say what they need because there's that part of them from the past that was never heard and validated. So having that conversation, imagining as if that's your past self, right? And you're in your present moment, or even as your future self, however you want to imagine it, you're seeing it, you're having that conversation. What's wrong? What happened? What do you need? And then helping them to shift in, okay, let's see what we can help you. What are you going to learn from this? And you choosing to have that other perspective, like, okay, I'm an adult now. I'm seeing what I choose to learn from this is, and having that different perspective. So valuable conversations will detach the emotion of the past. You can see the past experience. I was in a narcissistic relationship for 17 years. He doesn't trigger me anymore. He doesn't. He doesn't get to control me. I get to choose how I feel. And it's so liberating. And so detaching that emotion from that experience is huge. And then seeing it in a way that in the gain, looking back toward the light, how is that helping me to become who I want to be? If it wasn't for my past experiences of feeling controlled, I can't say I was being controlled, right? That's the victim wording versus I felt controlled is me taking responsibility for that. I gave away my power. I did. And I let other people choose things that was mine to choose. I didn't use my voice. I didn't speak up. And then what do I want to learn from that? Right now, the person that I've become, I couldn't be and do what I do now if that hadn't happened in my past. So truly, it becomes a gift of gratitude. I'm so grateful for everything that I've been through. And so really seeing the gain from all of those past experiences, that's what gives you the power to move forward.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that's a healthy way to go look back. If you look back and say, what would I change? Not that you can change what happened, but you can change what happens going forward, or how you treat the next hour, the next day, the next year, whatever. And that's pretty cool because, like I said, I heard Ted Nugent one time say that sometimes you don't want to understand because it introduces evil into your life and you don't want to introduce that kind of thinking into your brain. And that's somehow how I saw my past. It's like, yeah, I know I was there. Why, but I guess I kind of got there in just a different words than you use. I mean, I know where I was before. I know where it felt. I know kind of the patterns because, I don't know about you when you were at your lowest, but I use this example all the time. I could spill a glass of milk and, the saying goes, don't cry over spilled milk. Well, that spilled milk would become then this and then that and then the other. And before too long, it would always go down the same road. And that progression always seemed to be the same. And I think going back and looking at that, now I know okay, so I did something. I spilled some milk. Another thing that used to trigger me a lot was putting the wrong dog food in the wrong dog bowl.
Oh, wow.
It didn't really matter, but one dog's pink, the other one's black, so I have a pink and a black bowl, and they're one's 50 pounds and one's 120 pounds. So it does matter if you give them the wrong food, but it doesn't matter what bowl you put it in, right? But something that simple, I used to go react, and there would be this chain of negative self-talk, and it went from that to, Bobby, you're not good at anything, you're failing your family, you're not providing for your wife, you're going to live in poverty. All these things were so untrue. And so I think maybe that's a good example of to go back to your past and look at those, identify those, change, because then now I know I replace it. Now if I do something like that, which I still do, I mean, we're human, right? I laugh at it. And I almost see an event like that. And sometimes I just think to myself, this could have ruined 2 weeks of my life in the past. But now it's something, and it's really something stupid, right? The dog balls are easy. You just switch the balls or give one to one, there's easy solutions. So I don't know, but maybe I'm oversimplifying your beautiful way of putting this, but I always want to know why I think, and then secondly, I want to know what other people think, and you're kind of really helping me. So if no one else has benefited from this today, it's certainly me, but I'm sure they are.
Awesome.
Can we shift gears, kind of?
You bet.
And we didn't talk about this in the pre-show, so if you don't want to do it, just tell me. We'll go on to something else. But you talked a couple times about hypnotherapy, and I know nothing about it. And I'd love to know more. The only thing I know about it is a friend of mine did it a few months ago, and he's reported back it's helped him tremendously. But can you just kind of basically explain the science behind it and what you do? Because frankly, I want to know a little more.
Yeah, you bet. So the traditional idea of hypnotherapy is where you relax into a calm meditative state. There's different levels of where the brain waves are. If you're sleeping, it's the lowest level of delta. If you're high activity, it's beta. The theta is the middle Goldilocks zone, where you can retrain your brain very easily. It's where a child grows up from the ages of 0 to 7 years old. They're 100% in that theta brain state. So that's why we work in that relaxed, calm state. And what happens in that place is you're choosing to see whatever experiences have happened and then using the 4 R's that we teach with the repatterning method. And the thing that's different with what we do versus what other people do, I feel like some practitioners and I don't want to point any bad guy fingers at anyone else, but there's just the mentality, the cultural default of needing a client to be dependent on a person, a practitioner, someone that can fix you. You're a car, I'm going to bring you into my garage and I'm going to make you all better. But that mindset is what created my personal experience of feeling incapable because I had to be fixed, right? So I now transform that into needing to give other people that power, empowering them to choose. It's not me doing it for you. I'm creating this space between here and here for you to go into that calm, relaxed place and find answers inside of yourself. So regarding hypnotherapy, I went to a school called Grace Hypnotherapy. She was amazing. There's lots of different types of hypnotherapy out there. There's one from the UK called RTT. There's all sorts of different abbreviations, but basically it's all the same thing. Getting into that calm, relaxed state and finding the ways to work through what you don't want and shift to what you do want. What's happening in the mind is the science, the neuroscience behind it is your reticular activating system. I don't know how familiar you are with the brain, but it's like the bullseye, the target of what you are looking at for your desired outcome. If you're only focused on the problem, that's why it's so important to shift from what you don't want to what you do want, because the brain is like soil, and whatever seeds you plant in your soil are going to come back to you. If you ask, what's wrong with me? Your brain's going to answer the question, what's wrong with me? If you ask, how can I accomplish that? Your brain will bring back the answers of how you can accomplish that. So pointing your brain very clearly and distinctly toward your desired outcome is what weaves together all of the subconscious experiences that come in that relaxed moment. So what it looks like when I'm guiding someone through a session is first talking about what their desired outcome is. I want them to feel that, point their brain toward what they want. So they are literally deciding what is the program I want to create, what's that pattern I want to create. And then we talk about what that can look like for as far as desired outcomes in their outside world, and then what that feels like in their inside world. So then I help them walk down into that calm, relaxed state. And the more you practice this, the more you can actually do it to feel that calmness in your body. That's what's going to switch off the monkey brain, the commanding brain, and get you into that frontal brain where you actually get calm. You can have that problem solving open up. You have the visualization skill to see what you want to create. So first getting into that calm, relaxed state, you can count yourself down. Imagine you're walking downstairs or an elevator or relaxing into a tub. There's so many different possibilities, but relaxing into that calm place and then finding out, sometimes it's first, depending on where the client is, sometimes it's first looking at the clouds, what's happened in the past that you want to let go of. But by the time we're done, we're helping them to visualize that fourth R and see it, smell it, taste it, feel it. You're standing on stage. This is how you want to feel. This is the impact you want to create. And there's the desired outcomes that you can't control, but you still want to imagine them. What impact do you want to create in the world, and what does that feel like for you? So one of the things I love to think about too is Maslow's triangle as you're moving up in those levels of safety. When the client first comes to us, we work with them on 4 different stages. Stage 1 being very focused on the problem. Stage 2, learning the tools. Stage 3, where they're being empowered to employ the tools. And Stage 4, they're actually creating what they want. So depending on where they are in that journey, they're going to be able to focus on the clouds, removing what they don't want, and then truly imagining and embodying that visualization. So when your brain has that pathway, imagine you're standing in a forest and there's nowhere to go. When you visualize what you want to create, it's imagine you're cutting down the trees and you're creating that pathway in your brain. It's literally the neurosynaptic pathway. You're showing your brain, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to do. And then when you do it in your outside world, it feels so much more natural. Fluid. Oh, I've done this before. This isn't new and unfamiliar and scary to me because I've been here before. So you first create it in your inside world, and then it becomes more fluid as you create it in your outside world.
How long is it like, I've done a little bit of research into like psychedelics, which I know is
Mm,
complete like rampant it up. That's
yeah.
like a jet engine versus like, a little Cessna in this case.
Hmm.
But like how long after each session do you like have to rewire your brain? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's some reintegration that you
Hmm.
do or those sort of things. I'm assuming. That is it days? Is it hours? Is it more gradual than something like, using a substance to get you in the same place?
It depends on your level of desire. So, your desire,
Mhm.
if I kind of want this, or man, this is like so important to me, all of those things in your brain are going to be reorganized according to how much you want it. And the thing with psychedelics, and there's so many options, and I'm not saying that any one of them is wrong, but the more that you can choose from the inside what you are choosing to do to rewire, the more power you're going to have to choose it again. Right? So
Yeah.
that's where we're guiding people to, is to claim that power to choose. So in the first 24 hours, you're going to have kind of, I would say, the minimal, but within 3 days, you're going to start noticing when you point your brain toward how is this really making a difference, and you begin to notice. It's funny, clients that don't look, how is this changing or what's noticing, they're unaware of the improvements that they're making. If they literally don't ask themselves, what's improved today? How am I different than, 3 days ago? What happened? But it really does shift. And the more you practice it, the deeper it will go each time.
Yeah, no, I think what it comes down to is what you said, the level of desire,
Yeah.
because and I think that's true with any change you
Mm-hmm.
make in life.
Exactly.
It's like, and I wrote about it. I don't remember if it was a chapter or what. You seem to have read my book more recently than I have, so you can call me out a bit. But my dad always said, "How big is your want to?" Right, and
Mm-hmm.
and that really is true. And I think a lot of times with like when we're talking about calmness and happier living, mental health. I think we're so programmed and we've lived so negatively for so long, we don't think it can happen. So our want to is probably too small.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you've seen and what I've been hearing talking to you and then also what I've experienced, if I could encourage anyone to make that want to, like, to get your mental health squared away, it's got to be your number one goal, because as you talked about earlier, the Kokoro, I mean, it's that whole mind, body, soul.
Yeah.
But there's lists for a reason, right? Why is mine first? And that might be the
Mm-hmm.
way I remember it because it's so important to me. It might be my own personal bias here, but it's like, do you find that people, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, so you don't have to really answer, but do most people not want it enough? Are they so defeated by the time they reach out to someone like you who's got all these tools in their toolbox that you almost have to encourage them to want it more than they may want it for themselves?
That does happen at times. And where I look at that is the default wiring, so to speak. Everything that they've lived in their past, they've created those neurosynaptic pathways. However many times you've gone down that road, it's going to make it deeper and deeper. There are times when people aren't ready to face that cave. They're not ready to, they feel like it will break them if they look inside and find someone that they don't like. But helping them to see what difference they can make in the world, where I love to point them is finding joy and happiness really is a matter of knowing who you are and what you're born to do. And when you connect that purpose into a contribution that you can make on the planet to make a difference, to make the world a better place, what are your unique gifts and abilities, your past, all the darkness that turns into light? How can you use that to make the world a better place? When you focus on that place and then you focus on connection with other people, there's nothing that can stop you. That energy pulls you upward and forward, and that joy leads you to the next place. So that's the epitome of the Maslow's triangle of coming to that place of enlightenment for me, where I really feel that joy of making a contribution. I know who I am. I'm using my gifts to make the world a better place, and I'm making a difference, and believing that and seeing that, even though I can't see the full impact of that in the world yet. That's where I hold the messy middle of that belief.
Yeah, yeah, but you can see what you can control, which is right in front of you at
Yes.
the time, your own emotions, your own actions. I
Yes.
think I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is, knowing who you are. And
Yes.
I say it all the time. So many of us, because I was that guy. I outsourced who I was. I got to a point in my life where I no longer, not only did I not know who I was, I thought who I was a bad, terrible person. And one of the biggest turning points for me in my mental health journey was realizing that I'm not a bad person. I was just telling myself, as you said, if I say what's wrong with me, I love that. If I say what's wrong with me, of course the brain's going to ask me or answer me what's wrong with me, because the brain is there to protect you. It's to get, it's like if you go to ChatGPT and say, where's the closest Mexican restaurant? It's not going to tell you where the hamburger joint is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same with your brain. And I think that's what we fail to realize. So getting to know who you are, I think is critical. And I just want to encourage everyone listening, if you're struggling, like find out who you are, like really get in touch with it. Use this hypnotherapy, use this 4R framework. There's so many different ways. And that's what I like about you is you bring like several different solutions to the table. I know you integrate them together,
Yeah.
but they're also, helpful separately. What else would you want to impart? I know I've kind of led this all over the place. So thank you for indulging my I told you before we started, my mind goes crazy places. And but this is something that I know you're passionate about, and I'm very passionate about. And I certainly, when I started to get better, I realized that God saved me for a reason. And that's that purpose I think you were talking about earlier. And the purpose is to try to help one person not get to where I was. And if I can do that, that's a success. And like you said, you never know, right? It's that messy middle. But all I know is I've got to show up and give the tools, the abilities, the things I've learned to as many people as possible, because you don't know which one is going to change, And certainly I'm sure in your line of work and even mine, people come back and tell you that. So I know I've surpassed that one, but I like the one a day because that's doable, right? As coaches, we always say, take action, take reasonable action, that sort of thing. But yeah, give us something to take home and wrap up everything that I've taken you on this wild ride for today.
Well, first of all, I love the wild ride. I love the back and forth conversation. So thank you for listening to that little tiny thought that takes us down that road and creates that passionate conversation that's really meaningful. The takeaway I would love to help people understand is no matter where you are on your journey, you do have the power to choose. Sometimes the world will tell you, you can't do this, you can't do this. As parents, I can't do anything about that. Challenge that thought. Really? You can't do anything about it? Okay, let's plant a different question. What can you do about it? Right? The brain's going to answer whatever question you ask. So look for where your power is, claim your power to choose, find that desire inside of you that's going to pull you upward and forward toward what you want to create. Because that's the opposite of burnout, right? That desire going toward what we want, that is going to create joy and fulfillment in your life. So I would just love to share, like, our vision in the world is collaborating with people so that we can work together in synergy, finding people that have that common vision. So if there's someone that's listening or you want to join together and find a way to create this difference in the world, that is what we're doing. We have a board game that's in design, Conquering FUD through mental fitness, and I'm starting a podcast of my own soon, Conquering FUD. So it's going to be super fun, just exploding my light into the world and finding people that we can collaborate with.
Well, I said we'll wrap it up, but now you introduced another question for me, and you said you have a little more time, so let's indulge for a second. What does FUD stand for?
Oh, yes, default. My brain automatically thinks it stands for fear, uncertainty, doubt, dread, and discouragement. So anytime the brain is going toward the clouds, and I love that we have this picture that's on the front of the board game that shows the river going from the sun to the clouds, and it's automatically pulling like gravity downstream. And that's that mindset of where our brains are wired to look at the problem, because our brain wants to keep us safe. And when we intentionally choose to go upstream, we are going against the default wiring. We're going against the status quo. We're doing what's hard on purpose, so then it can become easier and more fulfilling later.
That's cool. And you're developing let's talk a little more about it, because you just briefly mentioned it. And I know you told me about it when we pre-interviewed, but this board game, when's it going to come out and who is it for?
We're shooting for Christmas, but we don't have a deadline yet because there's other pieces that need to fall in place. It's for parents, teachers and leaders. Eventually, we hope to get it into corporate in the leader setting, but starting with parents and teachers and finding in our community first, we're in that stage of playing it in our community so that we can really get the pieces working. One of the things that I love about it is noticing what you can control and what you can't control. So you have a set of cards in your hand. These are the choices of the things that I can do, and here's the circumstances that I'm drawing that's coming at me as real life. So there's a lot of parallelism, hopefully, that we're just going to get it to that place of this is what it means to choose your power to create the life that you want.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, when it comes out, I want to play it, and I want to have you back on the show, and I want to discuss it because
Awesome.
This sounds really cool. And you said parents, teachers, and leaders.
Yes.
That's pretty much everybody, because I
Right.
believe that everyone leads something. You lead yourself every day, and
Yeah.
so got to plug the self leadership. This is a
Love
leadership
it.
lab. But that's cool. And then real quick also, and then I also want you to tell where we can get in touch with you now. When's your podcast supposed to be coming out? Or
I
when do
am
you plan?
still setting it up. I would guess within the next month. Yeah. I
Okay,
can
awesome,
get that
awesome.
going. Mhm.
Awesome. So when you do, let me know. I'll let everyone here know.
Love it.
I'm very excited for you. I was thinking this whole time, I was like, does she have a podcast? If not, she needs one. But you already answered that question. I'm like, Joe Rogan tells everyone to have a podcast. That's what we need is more podcasts out there. But in this case, I think we definitely do, because your perspective, you're a beautiful human being, and I've learned so much from you today that I'm just. But where can people get in touch with you before these things come out? And of course, we'll like I said, we'll put them out when they do come out. But
You
go
bet.
ahead.
We're at kokorocreators.com. That's KOKORO creators.com. You can take the quiz. It's up in the right-hand corner. It'll guide you through the 4 stages. It'll help you to see what stage you're in. We have tools for people at each stage, depending on where you are. And just as a tip, depending on when this comes out, we're currently rebranding the messaging on the website from hypnotherapy into mental fitness so that it feels more mainstream. Hypnotherapy can feel more woo-woo for people that haven't experienced it before. But yeah, if depending on when you see it, we'll be in the middle of that shift. Messy middle.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And, a lot of times that whole woo-woo thing, the woo-woo is good. Like I encourage everyone to experiment with it, because, it doesn't replace whatever you did. Before we came on the show, we were talking about Stoicism, Christianity, and the kind of dichotomy there. But it's only dichotomy if you make it, right? You're only offended by whatever you decide or whatever you think. And this goes back to the whole theory of today. But anyways, I've taken more of your time than you allotted. But Pennie, it has been a absolute honor, and I'm so glad you came on the show. And for all those listening, I hope you learned as much as I did. Go out there and do something today to improve your mental health. What can you do about it? Find out what that thing is. Don't use the word can't. Don't use the word won't. Go out there and find what can we do about it. Live a better life. Lead yourself so you can lead others. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time.